There you go, James. I dumped a few bearings out, and all the remains seem to be aluminum. However, there are a few differences in the weights of the different type bearings, you know. So if you get one of these and they're really flyweight, sort of B-Larry, it does have no steel in it, but it is multi-layered construction. It has the Babbitt layer, then it has the copper layered laid down under that, and then it has the aluminum construction of the bearing. When these do wear down, you will see copper has a wear pattern when you take the motors apart. This is the bearing that I didn't really care for. I have two of them here, right here, side by side, and this is you know, I try not to form an opinion unless I experience something firsthand. And this is I don't know if you can see the surface of those bearings, but they're pretty worn. And we've talked before about the crank and the bearing never making contact unless you have a failure. These were end of motor for a South Carolina trip. My personal engine drove to Dragnite and back. And when I got back in town, the oil light was flickering. And these are worn quite a bit, but we see no wear because it's a solid aluminum shim. And there's no copper layer in here, and there's no metal layer. Typically, these center ones are usually metal. And here's some metal ones from days gone by. You know, you can tell the difference when they hit the floor. These are definitely steel. I had a magnet, but it seemed to have disappeared from here, so can't do the magnet test for you. But just make sure, you know, it's not super light construction when you pick it up. And I was telling you, you know, some of the new bearings, these saddles are really tight on the case or too loose, so make sure the bearing fits in the saddle tight. And this is the bearing I was telling you that I replaced the bearing behind the timing gear with. These are steel, and if you do a lot of Berg crank motors, you'll change the center bearing over to 411 and you'll have a lot of these left over. And there's builders out there that'll sell you these bearings, or you can buy two sets, however you have to do it to get the extra protection in your motor. These bearings wear quite well, and they give the crank some protection towards the rear of the engine. You know, you're driving the alternator or generator, and that belt pulls on the snout of the crank all the time. So anytime that you can get a little better main bearing, you're heading in the right direction. I had another question on port work. What do I use port cylinder heads with? These are my main cutting bits here that I like. These are pretty old here. I bought these at the Snap-on truck. They're long, so you can get all the way down to the port. You want to be sure to, you know, not just gasket match your port and make a funnel effect, but you want to, you know, go all the way through the port and clean it up so you have good flow. Good flow is probably one of the most important things to make them power that there is, and we probably don't touch on it a lot, you know, because it's sort of like voodoo stuff. Well, anyway, here's one of the manifolds. We got that one done. You can see it's ported all the way through. Looks real sexy. And that's the head side, and you can see the finish in there. What I did to use to get that finish is I used this sanding arbor I made. One of the YouTubers taught me about this. He doesn't make a lot of videos anymore, but he used to do a lot of Mopar stuff. We became friends, and he gave me some tips on how to get a symmetrical port. He saw me struggling, and he put a hand out, and I sort of took his advice, and it worked well for me. But this is the bit I made. It's just bar stock. And then you get this sandpaper on a roll and rip your own pieces off and roll it up on there. And let me show you, I'll demonstrate. Anyway, you just use a slot, you put the end of the paper in there, and you just roll it up. And you want to keep it nice and neat. And that's what you get. Now when you put this into the port, this flap will open up like this, and it'll cut symmetrical all around the port. And what I do, let me pick the camera back up and try not to turn it off. This is the port per se, and instead of getting down on the port with the Tootsie Roll cutter, of course we go in first with this and give the intake manifold, the area we want it to have, you know, we port it to the size we want, and then we finish it this way. And you can see how this is unrolling on here. Well, when you put it in, you just keep it in the center of the port in a honing motion, and it'll open that port up and smooth it out. It'll take all these cutting bits out, and it'll give you a nice flat symmetrical finish all the way around, instead of being bouncy from, you know, trying to get one spot at a time flat with this. It's very hard. A lot of these are cut on an angle, so you're not going to get a true surface in there. And this here just eliminates all that, lets it go in there and do its thing. The more paper you put on here, of course, it gets tighter in the port and will cut faster. And I'm making pretty tight, and then I, you know, back off when I go to the finer grits. I think I have 80, 100, 120, and then you can go to polish from 120. Another question I got was the finish on the ports. This is on an aspirated head. You probably want to have a little texture in the intake port, you know, so you can have a little atomizing going on in there to keep the fuel in an atomized state and suspended. When you polish the port on an aspirated motor, it tends to make the fuel drop out of the port and fall to the floor of the port and do what they call puddle. You don't want that, and that usually happens from the port being too slick and not having any resistance in there to mix the air and fuel together. Now, if you're running a turbocharged car and you have an injected setup, you can get away with a little bit of polish, but again, you know, you don't want to get too much polish on the intake port. You can make it a little sweeter in a turbo application because this is pressurized. And in an aspirated situation, we're dealing on a pressure drop to make the port work. So when the butterfly opens, there's a pressure drop from the cylinder to the atmosphere, and that's what makes the speed in the port. And we're forcing that to happen with a turbocharger, and the fuel can stay more packed in the air, and it can be more of a liquid in a turbo motor. That's why on Noel's car, you know, a lot of you guys have made the comment how nasty it sounds and raspy, and that's the amount of fuel that's going through the motor. And some of it doesn't get burned at low RPMs, and it makes it sound real cammy, like the choke's on almost. And that's exactly the same effect it's having on the engine. Like if you had a normal engine, you pulled the choke on, you know how it sounds like it's got a cam in it. Well, when you start putting way tons of fuel in this port and you can't burn all of it, you'll get the same sound. It'll have that like it's got a huge cam. Now that clears out as soon as the motor is wide open, and a lot of the reason we get that sound on that car is because we run very small port heads on it. We run the oval port, not the oval. It's just called an oval port, CNC oval port. It's the smallest one they make, and we did that. It's even a 40 millimeter intake valve, believe it or not. But the reason we do that is if we hurt a head, we can buy one individual head. When you get into these wedge port heads and the nicer port designs, you're going to have to buy a matched set of heads, and you're not going to be able to purchase one cylinder head. So that's why we do that on the turbo car. One of the other tools you'll need is some Dicom or layout die, so you can paint your surface there, and now you put the gasket that you want to port to, scribe it out, and then you port to the scribe mark. So that's how some of this works, and hope that answered a few questions. I'm sure there's other questions that I'm not answering, and I apologize. I've been feeling good the last couple of days, and that's what's going on. This head's just about done. The combustion chambers, I do put a little polish on those, whether it's aspirated or turbocharged. It just promotes better flame travel, and it keeps the combustion from sticking in the chamber. So that's the reason I do that. These were checked for total lift, and we CC'd these. They're pretty much ready to go back together. I have to grind the keepers. The other head was fine, but for some reason this head, the keepers are all touching, and none of them have been ground. You can see the black anodized still on them. So those need to be sanded, and you want to get these where they do not touch. When you put them on the valve, you want to have a little space in between the keeper, so it's not not clamping the valve properly. When the keepers touch together and don't go all the way in the groove, that's when you start pulling metal up in the keeper groove. and it can make the valve very hard to get out of the head. I'm sure a lot of you guys have experienced that. It happens when you float the valves a lot and when the keepers aren't ground properly. You'll go to pull the valve out of the head and this is all raised up, and you actually have to file this surface so you don't damage your guide to get the valve out. The other thing you probably need if you're going to do this is 2 junk valves. That's how I do the combustion chambers. I have these 2 sacrilegious valves there. You stick them in, do the unshrouding work and stuff like that, and you're gonna scratch these up, so you can't be partial to them. They need to be something that you're not using anymore. So I hope that helps. I'm gonna pick these bearings up, put them back in that can, and maybe come out tonight and assemble this head. The exhaust port on this head, I did that, and I smoothed that out pretty nice. You want the exhaust to flow. The exhaust can be on the slippery side. It doesn't affect the exhaust. You're not trying to atomize or keep any kind of fuel suspended in the air, so the exhaust port can be slippery. And again, it promotes the port staying clean and not getting the carbon buildup on it when it's nice. So that's it. It's a wreck out here. I need to come out here and do some stuff. I haven't been out here in a day or two. And I'm going to try to put that Volkswagen head together and take these Pontiac heads apart and valve job those next. And try to get this thing running. So, got a piston rod coming for this Pontiac. And as soon as I get that, we'll be ready to put it back together. And I'm just going to go through the heads real quick. Everything's fresh, but they have some surface rust. So we'll glass bead and make them look pretty and put them back on new, freshened. Okay guys, hope that holds you over, and hope that answered a few questions. If I didn't get to your question, I'll make another video. I'm going to try to answer some questions on video that people have asked me. If I can do a video on it, I will. And James, I hope that helped you out with the bearings, and good luck with the motor. It's good talking to you on the phone. Always cool talking to YouTubers. Talked to James for almost an hour. Never met him before, never talked to him, and that's the way it is when you talk to YouTubers on the phone. It just goes on and on. So there's that. Hope that helps you. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. That's what makes the world turn around. And you guys have a good day.